1. Zohran Mamdani, socialism. Somalis in Minneapolis. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nick Fuentes, squirrel hunting, and catfish rodeo. I don't know where we're headed in America, but it feels increasingly like the only obvious answer is chaos. 2. Hillary Clinton wants to sound the alarm on loudspeakers across America. Sitting senators and congressmen have heard the alarm and have called the military to stand down from President Donald Trump with Kurt Schlichter. 3. 21 points just isn't enough, Philadelphia. It is Will Cain Country on a Monday, on a holiday week. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you will always join us here at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel. Back from the woods and back to civilization. The 5th annual squirrel hunt and catfish rodeo is in the books. 3 squirrels, 20 catfish, a fish fry, perspective, a campfire, and chaos. Let's get into it with story number 1. President Donald Trump met with New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani on Friday. It was chummy. There were backslaps. Go ahead. Tell him what you really think. Am I a fascist? Trump and Mamdani seem to bond over a populist message, an understanding of where you come from in terms of being a political dark horse, winning over the population and understanding the angst of a younger generation. Zohran Mamdani then goes straight to the Sunday morning shows and says, yep, it's true what I think. He's a fascist, Donald Trump.
At press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, that's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it. So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement.
President Trump and Zohran Mamdani have something in common. I don't think it's their worldview. I don't even think it's their vision of America. But I think they see a similar path. I think they see similar issues. I think they have different solutions. And for a while, those solutions made travel together. A fellow traveler, if you will. They see the issues of affordability. They see the rise in populism. On the left, that populism is leading to socialism. Seattle, Minneapolis, Chicago, Massachusetts, New York City. The far left has taken over great population centers in America. As we sat around the campfire in East Texas this weekend working out the world's problems, you could hear something that you might hear at your dinner table, that you might later hear this week on Thanksgiving. You will hear the popular message, the accepted conclusion. You will hear a diagnosis of the present tense, today. The left is in disarray, and the right is in lockstep behind President Donald Trump. But what I see is something down the road, perhaps around the corner. And that thing that I see is that the left is actually beginning to coalesce. The left is beginning to come together. And they're coming together, if not under socialism, then under far leftism. In Minneapolis, major story last week as a huge fraud ring was exposed by the City Journal. City Journal, publication under the Manhattan Institute, after a deep investigation and put out and shared widely by Chris Rufo, revealed that the Somali population, or a significant percentage of the Somali population, or a crime arising out of the Somali population is enough to shock the consciousness. Huge Somali fraud rings in Minneapolis diagnosed tons of children as autistic, bidding the families on where they could get the biggest money to go get their children to walk into various social services and get their kid diagnosed as autism, would get those families anywhere from $300 to $1,500 a month. Why? Well, once they were diagnosed as autistic and signed up for social services under one of the various Somali charities, then you could get Medicare reimbursement. $3 million, that's how much went from the federal government, Medicare and Medicaid, to population in Minneapolis diagnosed as autistic in 2020. By 2024, that $3 million had exploded into $400 million in autism services through Medicare and Medicaid. A similar scheme was perpetrated on housing services in Minneapolis, housing dedicated to the disabled, housing dedicated to those that are indigent. Qualifying some of that Somali population as indigent, they managed to commandeer much of the housing services in Minneapolis and reimburse themselves to the tune of, again, several $100 million in federal aid. Where did that money go? Well, what we learned from the City Journal report is that 40% of the Somali economy, I'm talking about not in Minneapolis, but in Mogadishu, I'm talking about in Africa, I'm talking about in Somalia, is remittances. Money sent from nationals, foreign nationals, the diaspora of Somalis across the world. It totals $1.7 billion. That 1.7 annually going back into Somalia from places like Minneapolis is greater than the size of the government of Somalia. Bigger than the budget of the government of Somalia. Where does that go once that $1.7 billion arrives in Somalia? Well, in part, it went to various organizations and services that had direct ties to al-Shabaab, an ISIS-affiliated terror group in Somalia. It's not a long leap, and it's not an unfair characterization to say Minneapolis taxpayers funding fraudulent autism claims helped support ISIS-affiliated al-Shabaab in Somalia. How? Why? Does it matter? Headline from the New York Post. Minnesota NICE enabled immigration fraud to flourish in Twin Cities for decades, ex-sheriff says. It's all about the votes. It's all about the votes. You don't win mayor of Minneapolis and you don't win governor of Minnesota without the Somali population. Why? You don't win mayor of Minneapolis without the Somali population. You don't win governor of Minnesota without Minneapolis. So you turned a blind eye to something going on for over 5 years, a fraud perpetrated on the Minnesota taxpayer. The Minnesota taxpayer, by the way, Minnesota NICE, put up with this. It didn't crop up overnight. If you were someone who observed, who pointed out what was happening in Minneapolis, you were called a racist. And that charge was enough of a shield to ensure that you had a flood of fake autism claims. Chris Rufo posts on X, Somalis are stealing billions of dollars from American taxpayers and sending cash to terrorists back home. It's time for real Donald Trump to revoke temporary protected status, TPS, for all Somali nationals in the United States. It's time for them to go home. Many people are pushing back on that characterization from Chris Rufo because he uses the term Somalis, saying we don't indict an entire ethnic population based upon the crimes of a select group of that ethnic population. That's true. That's fair. It's also fair to point out that when it comes to the World Corruption Index, out of 180 developed countries, Somalia ranks 179. You import certain cultures, you get certain cultures. That's what you got in Minneapolis. And that has led now President Trump saying he is ending deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota. You know, of course, that narrowly losing the race for mayor of Minneapolis was Omar Fattah, a Somali socialist, looking to join the ranks of Seattle, New York City, and other major cities across the country who have openly embraced socialism. Instead, they reelected Jacob Frey, simply settling for the same thing they've settled for in Massachusetts and in Chicago, and that is just lurching widely far left. This is the price that you pay. This is what's happening across America. You are looking at the left coalescing around far leftism based upon the very real issues of affordability, with that yellow brick road paved by populism. What is happening on the right? Around that same corner, down the road, what we see is a right not, for long at least, lockstepped around President Donald Trump. Senator Rand Paul went on Face the Nation this weekend. He was talking about what seems to be a growing drumbeat of war for regime change in Venezuela. The United States has told us that strikes and aircraft carriers off the coast of Venezuela is about combating a drug cartel in Venezuela. But it's becoming increasingly clear that what we are looking to do is oust Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, oust the socialists, oust the influence of Russia and most notably China in the Western Hemisphere. Senator Rand Paul said to Face the Nation, "I think it's clear that Senator Rubio, as a senator, was very much an advocate of regime change. This was at odds, really, with President Trump. And so when he was picked, a lot of people had been supportive of President Trump were, oh my goodness, they're picking someone much more hawkish and much more eager to be involved and intervene in other countries. And so people worried. I think once there's an invasion of Venezuela, or if they decide to re-up the subsidies and the gifts to Ukraine, I think you'll see a splintering and a fracturing of the movement that is supportive of President Trump, because I think a lot of people, including myself, were attracted to the president because of his reticence to get us involved in foreign war." Rand Paul is a libertarian, and I don't think that he speaks for a wide swath of the populist voting contingent on the right, but I also don't think he is completely wrong. Is it good or bad to seek regime change in Venezuela? Is it popular or unpopular? Is it good or bad for America? Does it serve America first? Is it what is wanted by the American people? That's an issue. There are also personalities. Marjorie Taylor Greene is retiring from Congress in January, leaving Republicans with one less vote, by the way, for the remainder until the midterms, with an agenda that needs to get done, leaving the Republicans a majority of two, one of those two being Thomas Massie, leaving Speaker Mike Johnson with the narrowest of margins. Why? Is she saying goodbye? Why? Because she seems to be having a break with President Donald Trump. Or does she see the next movement? There is a debate right now on the right. You'll see it online. You'll see it in X. There was a big story over the weekend showing that a lot of accounts on X originate from other countries, and pointing out on the left and the right, a lot of influencers, anonymous accounts. You don't know who they are, neither do I. Well, they show up in our algorithm and they have thousands of likes and they go viral, are actually, if not bots, people in Romania, people in Japan, people in various countries across the world tweeting as though they are Americans. And I saw this debate break out. Who really has influence? Who's real? Who's fake? And somebody saying the Groyper movement and the support for Nick Fuentes, it's all an online bot farm created out of Romania. It's not. It's not. It's very real. The voice, the influence, the points of view among young people, I'm telling you right now, it's real. And so what's coming? What's down the road? What's around the corner? What issues, whether or not it's Venezuela or affordability, are going to be something that you see a coalesced viewpoint here at home, in America, on the right? America First should be a cohesive movement. It's a very simple ideology. It's a very simple question that requires very clear answers. This policy, this position, this use of the American taxpayers' dollars, does it serve America first? The moral clarity of that proposition is seemingly clear. American voters elect American politicians to serve the interests of Americans. American taxpayers have their income and their property confiscated by American politicians purportedly to serve the interests of Americans. That shouldn't be something subject to factionalization. That shouldn't be subject to personalities. But here we are today. And without the Michael Jordan of politics, without President Donald Trump, so what we're talking about is a world post-Trump. You see the left, I think you see the left beginning to coalesce around an ideology, not yet a personality, not a charismatic individual capable of national election, but a movement of socialism. And on the right, what? Chaos. That's not a diagnosis of the present tense. I'm fearing that that's a diagnosis of the very near future. We'll talk about Mamdani and Somalia and the right coming up in just a moment with Kurt Schlichter on Will Cain Country. Hey, it is Will Cain, host of Will Cain Country. I want to tell you about one of my favorite, absolute favorite brands for the fall. It's Buffalo Jackson. If you've listened to me for a while, you already know how much I love their gear. They make rugged, timeless leather goods and clothing for men who like to live with little grit in their story. It all started out of Colorado, founded by a Southern guy from Tennessee who was running an outdoor leadership program for young men. Now they build the kind of authentic, durable jackets, flannels, and rugged leather bags that just fits the life of a man who's built to roam. You know that I've got a few of their leather jackets and flannels. Remember the puffy leather jacket I wore to the Army-Navy game last year in the suite meeting with President Trump last fall? Well, everywhere I go, people go, Will, where'd you get that? And every time the answer is Buffalo Jackson. And right now, their biggest sale of the entire year is happening. Their Black Friday sale is live, and everything on the site is 20% off. It's jackets, yes, but also flannels and awesome leather bags. All of it. Just head to buffalojackson.com and use the code WILL20. Again, that's buffalojackson.com, code WILL20 for 20% off the entire site. Let's talk about Mamdani. Let's also talk about the open call for insubordination, rejecting the orders of the President of the United States when we come back with Kurt Schlichter on Will Cain Country. Minnesota under Governor Walz is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over. President DJT. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live not only at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, but on Facebook. Search up Will Cain. You'll get the live stream of Will Cain Country there as well. You can also follow us, if you're not listening live, at Spotify or on Apple. Last week, you undoubtedly heard the video, saw the video of people like Congressman Jason Crow, former Army Ranger, Alyssa Slotkin, a former CIA agent, all imploring the military to ignore the President of the United States. Very, very clearly they say and clarify, we're talking about illegal orders. Well, since that time, they have been pressed. What are you talking about? What illegal orders? Because it sounds like a generalized call for insubordination, and they've been totally incapable of articulating any illegal orders. Here is Alyssa Slotkin from this weekend on the Sunday shows.
So let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
She goes on to quote A Few Good Men, I believe. She used the Tom Cruise movie, A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson movie, A Few Good Men, as her citation for asking the military to ignore orders from the president. Let's bring in the senior columnist for townhall.com, also the author of Panama Red. That's available for pre-order right now. It's Kurt Schlichter on the Will Cain Show. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, Will, how are you doing?
I'm good. I think, Kurt, on this story, and you served honorably, I think on this story, Jason Crow, who's been on the Will Cain show several times and debated me on several occasions, might have been actually the most embarrassing. He's an Army Ranger, by the way, former Army Ranger. And here he was defending his participation in asking the military to stand down. Watch.
How do you respond to these allegations from your colleagues, fellow veterans, that what you have put out there is weakening and corrosive to the military?
Well, these unfortunately are some of Trump's core supporters that are rallying behind the president, and they know better. They know exactly the difference between lawful versus unlawful. We were very clear in the video that what we're talking about is unlawful orders. You have the president's spokesperson going into a press conference this past week and saying that we called for people to disobey lawful orders. They're simply lying because the truth is unacceptable to them. It's unacceptable.
What do you think, Kurt? Are they simply limiting this? Hey, we were just talking about illegal orders.
Yeah, for no reason. We just decided we would start talking about illegal orders, even though there aren't any. And we'd mention Trump is about to do it, even though he hasn't done it. You know, I'm an 11 Alpha too. I'm a infantry officer. I wasn't a ranger, and I didn't do some of the cool things that he did overseas. And he did do some cool things overseas. And he's come back and completely disgraced himself. And I'll tell you why. A, he's a weasel. He's sitting there and equivocating. He knows what he did. I know what he did. You know what he did. Anybody who has a 5-year-old who says, I wasn't about to steal a cookie. I just had my hand hovering over it. It was just hanging there. I wasn't going to take a cookie. That's what he's doing. It's childish and it's annoying, but it's even worse because we as Army officers have a duty to take care of our guys, and that includes our dumb guys. And every year, you know, a commander I don't know if he ever commanded anything. Maybe he was a platoon leader, maybe he was a company commander. I don't know. But if he did, it's even worse because you spend 90% of your time about 10% of your people. You spend a lot of time focusing on the knuckleheads, and you have to protect them from themselves. So there's going to be some Spec 4 out there, some 23-year-old dummy who watches this video and thinks, oh, I'm going to decide whether it's a lawful order to send me to Washington, D.C. to keep those savages from butchering each other, and I'm going to decide it's not. And then I'm going to end up with a bad conduct discharge after I spend a couple years making big rocks into little ones in Leavenworth. And Jason Crow's not going to come visit. Elisa Slotkin, who, well, she was in the CIA. That's almost like being in the military. No, it's almost like being in the DMV, except the DMV actually achieves something. They aren't going to be there. You think Crow's going to show up and have margaritas with this guy at the prison? I don't think so. No. They're going to talk dumb people into doing dumb things so Democrats can get some performance art, and they're going to leave a life wrecked in their wake. And I think it's disgraceful. He's an Army officer. Take care of your men. And don't be a weasel. Don't equivocate. It's embarrassing.
I actually think it's even more dangerous than that, Kurt. I mean, it's a generalized call for insubordination. The fact that you say, well, we're only talking about illegal orders, and then they have been pressed on several occasions, give me examples of illegal orders, is all then in turn speculative. What they're doing is either openly calling or sowing the ground for basically a mutiny. You know, somebody asked me recently in a very social situation, do you think there's a chance the United States, and you've written a book, a novel on this, but do you think there's a chance that we descend into civil war? And then, you know, the minute that conversation takes place, I think that was Glenn Beck recently was talking about the stages of civil war, but one of the essential ingredients is when the military or the authorities turn on each other. So a state law enforcement turns against the feds, or the feds divide in and of themselves, right? It's most likely not civilians against some cohesive and unified federal force. It's actually dividing our force, you know, and this is the beginning of dividing the American military. And you can just see, I see the smile on your face because I'm curious where you're going to go with this in response, but you can just see, I just feel like this is a generalized call for turning on the government by some segment of the government.
Well, look, I first of all, thank you for reading my book, American Apocalypse, because I do talk about all this stuff and very similar things that could happen. Now, you don't have a cameo in American Apocalypse. Your name does appear in Panama Red, so you got that going for you.
Oh,
Now, I'm not worried about them. Look, this is obviously color revolution stuff, but the CIA being so completely incompetent as Elisa Slotnick and Abigail Spanberger and all the rest of them, they're just not good at this, because 95% of troops are going to look at these clowns and go, "Are you people stupid? Yes, you are. You're stupid and you ought to know better. Crow ought to know better. And another 06. Mark Kelly, he ought to know better." And 95% of troops are going to do that. So I'm not worried about substantial breakdown in the military, although that's certainly what they intend. They intend to delegitimize Donald Trump. I don't think it's going to work, especially since we're returning the military to the military culture within our armed forces, thanks to Pete Hegseth and the great people working with him. So, yes, they're trying to do what you say. No, I'm not worried. This pathetic and embarrassing little antic is going to accomplish what they want. They're as competent at color revolutions as they're competent at everything else, which is not very.
Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X, if the president hasn't issued illegal orders, the members of Congress telling the military to defy the president is by definition illegal.
It is.
That's beginning to get some pushback. You agree with that, Kurt? I mean, there is some question. I saw some posting like,
oh, it is.
Is there sedition laws? Sedition laws have been broken. I'm asking you here by any of these elected officials.
It's always a fine line between what's free speech and what's sedition. Then you got to throw speech and debate clause into the mix. I don't think our answer here is a criminal process. Okay, I think our answer is political. And I think the answer is for people on both sides of the aisle to say, time out. No, this is crossing a line. We don't want to go there. Donald Trump was elected by the American people to be the commander-in-chief. He has a right and a duty to issue orders to the American military, to command. Okay? Just like I hold a commission, I'm authorized to do that, so is he. But he was elected to do it. So if anything, his commission's more commission than mine. And there's this notion out there, and we keep seeing it. We keep seeing it with these rando rogue judges. We keep seeing it with various nitwits like Eric Swalwell, who now wants to be my governor when I'm in California. He spent a lot more time here in Texas, Will. That somehow it's illegitimate for Donald Trump to exercise the powers of the office to which he was legitimately elected. That itself is very dangerous. We are not illegitimate. We are American citizens. We elected this president, and he has a duty and a right to use his powers to enact the policies he promises. And all the policies he's enacting are policies he promised. There's no surprises here. Donald Trump's known for one thing: doing what he said he's going to do, keeping his word. You might not like it, but the majority of votes in the Electoral College, well, they went for Donald Trump.
You bring up these judges, Kurt. So there's this horrible story out of Chicago. 26-year-old lady reading her phone on the train, doused in gasoline by some insane guy that was arrested. Is it 70-something times he's been arrested? Yeah. I can't remember if it's 70-something, 40-something. Does it matter at some point? It's too much. And a judge is, of course, responsible for him being on the streets still. New York Post. Judge was warned not to free violent firebug before he allegedly set woman ablaze on train. He is a real and persistent threat. That was a warning from the prosecutor before the release of the man in the attack, according to court transcripts. Kurt, you brought up these judges. I don't know if they elect judges in Cook County. We elect judges in Texas. I don't know what they do in Illinois. But these judges, they're totally unaccountable.
My mom was a state court judge when I was growing up. Well, actually, a little later. But she she worked with Democrats and Republicans, and if you were a criminal in San Mateo County, you were treated like a criminal. And off the bench, you had very liberal people, you had very conservative people, and then you had my mom, who was a whole nother level. But we all agreed that criminals are bad and belong in jail. And I don't know when that consensus broke. In large part, Bill Clinton got elected because he came and said, essentially, I'm liberal about a lot of economic policies, but I also think criminals are bad, and I'm going to put people in jail so they can't rob you and molest your daughters and kill you. And people said, wow, it's safe to vote for this Democrat. And they did. And I'm wondering who the smart Democrat out there is going to be who says, I'm against criminals, and I think they should be put in jail. I want to fund the police more, and I want longer sentences for psychopaths. And I don't care if you call me racist, sexist, Islamophobic, fatphobic, transphobic, or a vegan. I'm going to do it anyway. And that guy could be a powerful force for the Republicans to face.
So this is breaking in the last 40 minutes, it looks like, Kurt. So I want to share this with you and the audience. So here is from the Department of War, an official statement. The Department of War received serious allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly, United States Navy retired. In accordance with the UCMJ and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings and administrative measures. This matter will be handled in compliance with military law, ensuring due process and impartiality. Further official comments will be limited to preserve the integrity of the proceedings. The Department of War reminds all individuals that military retirees remain subject to the UCMJ for applicable offenses, and federal laws prohibit actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, and good order and discipline of the armed services. Any violation will be addressed through appropriate legal channels. And then the Secretary of War himself, Pete Hegseth, said, the video made by the, quote, seditious six was despicable, reckless, and false, encouraging our warriors to ignore the orders of the commanders, undermines every aspect of good order and discipline. Their foolish screed sows doubt and confusion, which only puts our warriors in danger. 5 of the 6 individuals in that video do not fall under the Department of War jurisdiction. 1 is CIA, and 4 are former military, but not retired, so they are no longer subject to UCMJ. However, Mark Kelly, retired Navy commander, is still subject to UCMJ, and he knows that. As was announced, the department is reviewing his statements and actions, which were addressed directly to all troops while explicitly using his rank and service affiliation, lending the appearance of authority to his words. Kelly's conduct brings discredit upon the armed forces, and will be addressed appropriately. That was 5 minutes ago, Kurt.
I have grave doubts about taking criminal legal action about this. They do make I think it's a very important point. He tends to use his rank promiscuously. On Twitter, he's what? Captain Mark Kelly. And in fact, I took him to he's an 06 too. I'm an 06. I don't use it in my Twitter thing. I have it in my bio. It's a credential, like being a trial lawyer or a best-selling author of conservative action novels. But I think it's a bad form to use your rank in connection with the political things. When I say something, it's not because I used to be a colonel. It's because I'm Kurt Schlichter, American citizen. He should be out there saying, hey, I'm Senator Mark Kelly, or I'm just Mark Kelly, Captain Mark Kelly. At a minimum, it's bad form and embarrassing. I want everyone to know that all us colonels and captains out there are not hacks and not jerks, and that most of us are trying to police our own informally. Whether formally charging him is a good idea, I'm going to need to see more. I tend to think it's not. That's my initial impression. I like to see these things resolved
because of concerns. Is that because you have concerns about the First Amendment?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And I think in any case, you always heavily defer to the First Amendment. And just a general principle, then we have a political debate, which admittedly Mark Kelly was trying to get around. He was trying to get outside the terms of debate by creating outside of debate actions, illegal ones, on the part of soldiers, the sailors, airmen, Marines, and whatever the hell Space Force people are. And
so
still,
I didn't read it, Kurt, because
I have my doubts.
I didn't want to get bogged down. And Kurt is not only military, but he's also a trial lawyer. I don't expect one thing you learn going to law school is becoming a lawyer doesn't mean that you have ready at your memory every single statute in the United States Code, but that you know where to go to find it and hopefully how to read and interpret it. But it is quoted in this post, 18 U.S.C., that's United States Code, Section 2387 prohibits actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces, Kurt.
That's a crime. No, you're correct. Whether this falls into that, I guess the investigation's going to say. I can think of arguments in both directions, being a lawyer. Again, I think it is a bad idea, even though the Democrats have done it first, in general, to criminalize debate. I think it's generally a bad idea. Is it always something we shouldn't do? No. I think it bears looking at, but you're going to have to convince me.
I'd like to think, Kurt, that I'd like to think that among free speech advocates, I would put myself in the top 5%, meaning I almost always err on the side of free and unfettered debate and speech. I would be curious, first of all, of this code. 18 U.S.C. Section 2387. I want to read it for myself because this is a summarization from the Department of War, but I would love to see what that code reads. I would love to know then, just so you would know my thought process, anyone listening on Facebook, YouTube, or Spotify or Apple, I would then want to know if there's been any Supreme Court interpretations of that statute. Yep. That's how it works. That helps sets the limitations of it, because this does seem to address speech. Right? We do seem to have a law on the books, if I'm reading this correctly, and the Department of War's interpretation or summarization of it is accurate, then we do have a law on the books that limits speech for uniformed military, active, or retired. Now, I would like to know what the Supreme Court has ever been said on that, or whether or not that statute's ever been tested. If the answer is no, you might see the test right here. If it has been tested, we'll find out, is it applicable? Because, we have a democratically elected law. That's what we're quoting here with this statute. I'll have to see. Does it fit what was said by Kelly? I think what was said on its face is very dangerous, and by my gut and instinct, it does test the limits of, consequence-free speech. But I'll have to see exactly how this reads.
Exactly. Look, I don't think it is a frivolous argument to argue that he's potentially violated a statute that would pass constitutional muster, but I don't know yet. I think that's something I would, of course, I was a law partner, so I never actually did my own research. That's what the minions are for. But look, it's a very serious issue. I think we need to tread carefully. Again, no fan of Mark Kelly. I think what he did was disgraceful on a number of levels.
Right.
And but my strong inclination is to settle political disputes in the political arena, and because and we've seen our side be criminalized shamelessly in the past. And there's a good argument that, what's good for the goose is good. Sausage good for a goose, good for the gander. Okay. No, we can't have two sets of rules. I prefer one set of rules that be fair and honor our Constitution.
The problem is that you and I both know that deep down, this is just part of the TDS, Donald Trump's an authoritarian mindset, which is maybe very well illustrated by Hillary Clinton. 2 days, I believe Hillary Clinton posted this on X, but I think we have a video of what she has said over the weekend. If we do, roll it from Hillary Clinton.
You know what this reminds me of is I wish that there could be like a huge national sound system. And we would all wake up and they'd say, attention, attention, we have found the problem and we have solved it. He is gone. But the reason we're here tonight is to remind all of us, including ourselves, that that can't happen unless we make it happen.
I mean, look, we can play around with like what happens between 2 plus 2. We can argue and debate what the plus sign means, but that's the equation. Whether or not it's Mark Kelly or Jason Crow or Hillary Clinton, the equation is the purpose of all of this is to make sure that Donald Trump is gone, is to get rid of Donald Trump, is to avoid the authoritarian, is to give in to TDS, is to do away with Donald Trump.
No, it is. Yeah, look, they don't recognize the legitimacy of the last election. They don't recognize the right of people who think the way we do to participate in our own governance. And and we see that around the world. You see that in Germany, the most popular by a plurality political party, it has essentially been banned. Same thing in France, and even in Britain. All the people in power currently have gotten together and decided, no, you have no right to change us. Democracy equals us being in charge. That's democracy, and that's what they'd like to do here. It just hasn't worked out so well for them, and I don't think it's going to work out so well for them. Look, I'm old, Will. I'm too old to live on my knees. They hurt. So I'm going to stand on my feet, and I'm going to die on my feet. But I'm not giving in. I'm going to be an American citizen. I know that you joined us. I'm going to participate in my own government.
I know that you joined us in time to listen to what I was talking about at the top, and that is that not so much a diagnosis of where we stand today in the present, but where we're going to be in the very soon future, Kurt. I'm concerned. I'm concerned on, honestly, the left and the right. I'm concerned about the left coalescing around a populist affordability message that leads them towards socialism. I don't think Zohran Mamdani will be their hero, but he'll be a little bit like the garage band that pioneered a brand new form of music that someone else will popularize. And I think that I can see a future, not too distant future, where socialism is the coalescing message of the left. Meanwhile, I don't know. I don't know where we're headed on the right, Kurt. I'd like to think that I'm trying to put my finger on the pulse of things that are happening in a sense of under Donald Trump in the movement and where it happens after Donald Trump. I know you were listening to the top of the show, and I wanted to get your thoughts, Kurt.
Look, I wrote about this at Town Hall last week. These are the bad times. 6 months ago, you and I were living high, man. I was coming on your show, we're high-fiving ourselves about win after win after win. It's cyclic. The first election I paid attention to was 1972. Okay, I was 8 years old and down for Richard Nixon. 7 years old, and you have good times and you have bad times. These are the bad times. I think we're coming out of it. We had a bad election in Virginia. We had a lot of infighting with people who weren't conservatives trying to influence the conservative movement. Economic problems. Things are getting better. Trump has refocused. Virginia's in the past. We're learning from those mistakes. Nobody's talking about these nitwit fringe characters anymore. They're just, to the extent they are, it's to mock them for embarrassing themselves. And Donald Trump is focusing on affordability. I wrote about today at Town Hall the Mamdani meeting with Donald Trump. And I thought that was brilliant. Trump brings him in, acts like a reasonable, nice host, is polite to this young guy who's very charismatic, and he does speak to people. And in that way, Donald Trump, got back some of the mojo that he'd been losing because he looked like a president. He had this young kid come in, kind of submissive, showing him respect, and then Trump was polite and kind, and I think normal people looked at that and said, good, I like that. Things are going to start getting better. I don't know, the market was up 250 today. That's good. I was shopping for Thanksgiving. Some prices have stabilized, some have gone down. Some are still too high. We got a lot of work to do, but things are going to get better. I've been down this road before. I remember the nightmare with Jimmy Carter, and Reagan had to spend two years and a bad midterm cleaning it up. And I remember Trump 1.0, and Trump came in and had to clean up Obama's mess, and he had a bad midterm. But it came around because conservative economics, conservative policies, pro-American policies, they work. It's going to turn around. Good times are ahead.
I hope that's true, because I think the kids are not all right. I think that the younger generation has some real concerns.
Yes.
I'm not talking about I'm concerned for them. They're concerned for America. And I'm not sure. I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm not talking about the midterms. Now, I understand that, like, policy can make things very successful. Policy can change mindsets and prospects and fortunes and life outlooks. But, you know, if that's not accomplished, then I just don't know where we go, not necessarily in 2026, but where we go in 28 and beyond. And I'm not even talking about politics. I'm not even talking about how someone votes. I'm not even talking about parties. It's more chaotic. It's where we go as a country.
You are so correct, Will. And we lost somebody who was a real visionary in that. The last time I texted with Charlie Kirk, I was guest hosting a radio show, and I was trying to get him on to talk about this issue, to talk about young people. Because look, I'm a 60-year-old guy. I'm done practicing law. I'm retired out of the military. You know, I'm thinking, you know, I'm doing fine. And then a guy named Charlie Kirk comes along, and I'm hearing his podcast, and he's talking about these young people and what they're dealing with. And guys like me need to understand that. Guys like me need to react to it and make sure they have the same chance we had. And they don't right now. They absolutely do not. And that is what's going to crush this country. A generation of people who don't believe in their country. You know, I saw a poll that said about Americans who love and respect America. 92% of Republicans do. 53% of independents do. 36% of liberals do. That's scary.
Right.
That's a scary thought. So we have got to make sure the system is working for everybody. Not the people who've already done well, not the people who've already had their shot, but the people coming up. That's what Donald Trump needs to be. I think he understands that. And I think J.D. Vance understands that very well. We need to be the party that's going to give people a future, as opposed to trap them in this nightmare woke status quo. That's the Democrats.
Well, check out Panama Red. Apparently, there's a cameo by yours truly in Panama Red. You can always check him out. Like you mentioned his column last week at townhall.com about Mom Donnie. Check out Kurt Schlichter. We always love having him on the show. Thank you so much, Kurt.
Hey, thanks for having me, Will.
All right, happy Thanksgiving. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to hear from you, the Willisha Plus. I have this really, it's talking about the kids, really, really concerning stat. The Wall Street Journal's reported on how many kids are on ADHD drugs and what happens after they get on ADHD drugs. I'm watching Pluribus on Apple TV. Like, maybe the answer to all this is we all get anesthetized into some monolithic, I don't know. That's coming up on Will Cain Country. Willisha, we got your comments here on Will Cain Country, streaming live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, also the Will Cain Facebook page. If you're ever watching us on the Fox News Facebook page, now you can find us on the Will Cain Facebook page, streaming live. That's a better place to jump into the comments and become a member of the Willisha. You can also follow us on Spotify or Apple. Remember Young Establishment James? Our boy, Young Establishment James, up there doing big things on Capitol Hill. He sent in a new helmet for the desk. Washington and Lee helmet.
That's where he was.
I could not. I'm not even sure that I would have guessed that is the emblem of Washington and Lee, which, by the way, is kind of awesome. I like it. It
Pretty
looks
dope.
like a trident. I know that this is really going to upset young establishment James, who listens to the show. What are they? The Washington and Lee Generals? What are they? Like, what is their thing?
Oh wait, is that the school that dropped the generals?
They're the Trident.
Trident?
Oh, it looks like a trident.
Washington and Lee mascot is the Trident, and its mascot named Tridey is the actual mascot.
Did they used to be generals and drop generals?
Oh no, I'm thinking of a different one.
Because it seems too obvious. They should be the generals. Washington and Lee generals.
that's
that seems obvious. Why are we not that? Is it?
Why are we Aquaman?
Is that canceled? Right. I don't think of Washington and Lee as Aquaman. What are we doing as the Tridents?
I'll research this. Yeah,
over in the militia. Joanna Morton says, "Will, come on, everyone votes with their wallets. If the president can't get prices down and wages up, the voters will vote for the Democrats." I do think that's true. I'm just telling you, Joanna. I think that is true. I also think there are some deeper currents going on. I really do. Sarah Jordan says, "I don't like the infighting on the right." James Marsh says, "The veterans in that video must lose all retirement benefits." And then Michelle Jennings says, "Squirrel hunting, Will? Mean of you." Oh, this happens every time I talk about the fact that we go squirrel hunting every year. Squirrels are game. Squirrels are wild. Just because they're in the public parks and in your backyard doesn't mean they're pets. People have long hunted squirrels for sustenance.
On the Oregon Trail?
And just because we don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you played a video game, I see, where you hunted squirrels. We know that you've never been hunting because you don't go outside, you can't get ticks. We covered that last week here.
It's not happening.
On Will Cain country. I mean, do you eat meat, Michelle? Do you eat chicken? Do you eat beef? Do you eat anything? It all got harvested in some form, some fashion. Squirrels are no different. Trust me, by the way, Michelle, the squirrels are doing great on the squirrel hunt and catfish rodeo.
Is it good?
They're winning.
What do they taste like?
Okay, they're winning. I mean, we got 3 between 15 of us. You know, so I didn't even fire my gun, by the way. Didn't even fire my gun this weekend.
Is there any meat on them?
No, squirrels. The thing is, like, I'm not into it. I've done it. I've eaten the squirrel. No, it's not a lot of meat. It's pretty greasy. It's not great. Catfish, great. Catfish, fish fry, amazing. And we did get like 20 catfish. Had a huge fish fry. Just a plate of food that looks all one color. You know what I mean? All brown, all fried. Fries, hush puppies, tater tots, catfish. Patrick, it's so bad. It's against. Isn't there an old adage like have a colorful plate? This is the opposite of the colorful plate. The only color on the plate was the ketchup that you're dipping everything into. Go ahead, Dan.
So I have to submit a retraction on Washington and Lee. They are the generals. It was a bad read of an AI search. So it's a blue horse and a general is their mascot, and they are the generals. So I don't know where Trident came from.
It's not like AI to go wrong.
Yeah.
Say the wrong thing. Jeez.
Who would have thought AI being wrong?
You know what would be delicious,
Was
though?
that an AI hallucination?
It may have been.
Yes.
It honestly may have been. A ghost in the machine.
I bet you something that tastes really delicious is a manatee.
A manatee?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot.
Have you had horse, Will?
No, we don't eat horse in America.
Really?
I think it's illegal even. You can't even go to a restaurant. I don't think you can go to a restaurant and get horse in America.
Apparently it's good for dogs.
They eat it in other countries, but no. No, I've never eaten horse. And I'm pretty sure you can't eat a manatee, tinfoil.
Well, there was a senator back in the early 1900s that he proposed that we import a lot of hippos into Louisiana and start harvesting them because they would give us a lot more meat.
Fascinating.
And so then I went down this rabbit hole. I'm like, what about a manatee? Could you eat those? Because it's a sea cow, right? But yeah, it takes too long for them to give birth, so it doesn't work out.
What are you talking about?
Can't replace them. Can you imagine if we brought in hippos, like invasive species, like if they just proliferated? That would be a problem. I'm not into like importing animals into places they shouldn't be.
No.
They take all the other natural animals out.
It's like your buddy Steve Rinella.
Not into that.
Steve Rinella, his show, they do that, where he goes and, finds animals that aren't supposed to be there that were brought a long time ago and hunt them.
And they're wild now?
And they're wild now, yeah.
I mean,
like
honestly,
places of Arizona,
if we're being honest, yeah, horses shouldn't be here. They're not native to America. So, I mean, I guess that's a hole in my game. I do like horses in America. This is from the Wall Street Journal. This is incredibly concerning. 7.1 million kids ages 3 to 17 are now on ADHD diagnosis and on drugs. 1 in 5 of them, it starts with ADHD and they move on to other psychotropic drugs. I'm going to read, okay? The journal compared about 166,000 children ages 3 to 14 who started on ADHD meds in 2019. The medicated group was more than 5 times as likely to be on additional psychiatric medications 4 years later. Only 37% of the kids prescribed ADHD in 2019 had any prior behavioral therapy appointments. So just getting it, right? You just get it. Nearly 5,000 providers who ordered ADHD drugs for 100 children each between 19 and 22. On average, they gave additional psychiatric drugs to 25% of their patients. So by the way, will you look this up, Dan? I don't want to trust AI if it can't get the Washington and Lee generals right. I'm not sure I was going to get this right. How many kids are there in America age 3 to 17? How many are there? So if 7.1 million are on ADHD drugs, I'd like to know what percentage of kids out there 3 to 17 that is.
So just how many kids in America are aged 3 to 17?
Yeah.
There are approximately 70.
ChatGPT?
Yeah, the other AI that got that wrong was a different one, so I'm using this. There are approximately 72.5 million children in the U.S. aged 0 to 17. Yeah, so around that. So roughly 65 million, I would say 3 to 17.
So you're talking about 10 to 12% of kids that age are on ADHD medication. By the way, that feels low, doesn't it? Doesn't that feel low? Wouldn't you guess anecdotally that it's higher?
Yeah.
I'd say 1 in 4, right? Maybe half.
And boys would be the real trick because it's really, really happening with boys. Mm-hmm. And we've heard from friends of ours, like the social pressure and honestly the systemic pressure of teachers saying, you really should do this.
It's
you
amphetamines.
Really should do this. You should have this kid take a look at it. It's amphetamines. That's what it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So teachers telling parents with kids as young as 3, you really should look at putting your kid on amphetamines. You really should. Now, look, I understand the sensitivity of this topic. Like everybody listening right now, there's a good chance that your kid is or that you were. Dan's been honest about his growing up that he was on ADHD drugs. I think you've talked 14. And so it touches us all. It touches us all. Like all of us have family members. All of us know people or may have our own kids or may have done it ourselves. I mean, the real question, though, is like, how good and healthy is this? The prevalence alone forces us to step back and ask that question and the long-term effects, right? The prevalence alone, we have to step back and say, is it really true that 10% or 25% of our children are in need of medication like this? Is that really true? And what's happening? And much higher with young men. We know that. And what's the long-term effect?
Problem is abusing it, too.
This is, well,
I know a lot of people who do.
3 to 17 doesn't even cover college kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, college kids is a whole nother cohort where this is going to be incredibly prevalent. And I just, I just started that show Pluribus on Apple TV, and there's something about that show that makes me really question. It's like we're doing it to ourselves. That is, for the record, I'm not giving you any spoilers. That is a virus that infects humanity from alien technology that essentially makes everybody happy, makes everybody connected, makes everybody one, all but a few in the world. And it's like we are doing it to ourselves, where you look back and you go, what are we doing to our brains? Like willingly at large numbers to the next generation. Is it good? Like, has it? And the other thing is, I just don't think we debated it. I don't think we ever had a real conversation about it. Now, maybe everybody individually did, and maybe everybody who's ever made that choice for their own child really, really did, and looked into all of it, and maybe that's the case. But I just feel like everything, from the gummies that are proliferating now to the prescription, and the prescription's a whole nother level because it comes with the doctor's imprimatur. It comes with the doctor's stamp of approval, you know? That's a whole nother thing. Well, that's got to be fine. It's got to be fine. In fact, it's got to be good. And man,
benzodiazepines too.
Know. What is that? Is that the antidepressants?
Xanax, Klonopin, that kind of thing. That people abuse that with alcohol.
Yeah.
And people die, you know?
Right.
So does Pluribus have any connection to that the video game?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
I don't know what the video game is.
Don't know.
Oh, it's a whole. It's a whole. No. It's like this video game console that had popped up in the 80s. It's like a big conspiracy. It's like, did it even exist? Was it like some sort of psyop? You go down the rabbit hole tonight. You get back to me. It's fun. No. It's fun.
Pluribus is just Latin on a television show.
Patrick, I thought about you. Something's hit my radar recently about the Mandela effect, you know, in your conspiracy rabbit hole world. Like how many things are really the Mandela effect? Like it didn't really happen, but all in our head that it did. And there was one, I can't remember what it was, but we all just accept that this thing happened or this thing's true, but it never was. And it's like little things, like so-and-so said this in a movie, right? Or whatever, Bears. That we all just accept. What about them? How are they the Mandela effect?
Berenstein or Berenstain Bears. So, you got Fruit of the Loom. Does it have a cornucopia?
So
or
to
no?
me, it was the Berenstein Bears, but it's actually Berenstain Bears. So everyone has this different perception of what it was.
The movie
it's the Berenstain Bears, right? That's what I'm saying.
It's the Berenstain Bears.
T-A-I-N?
Yep. I thought it was, to me, it was T-E-I-N. Really? It's the Berenstain Bears.
No idea.
Yeah,
no idea.
Shared consciousness, man. We're all operating on different filters.
No, but the two things you just said don't make sense with each other. I thought it was shared consciousness. Then you said we're all in separate filters.
No.
So we all one. Like
some of us have. So we all share a similar consciousness. That's a zeitgeist, right? But you also see things through different filters, and so some people they experience through a different filter than other people. We'll have to have this conversation around a campfire with some squirrels.
That's exactly where that fits. That fits a squirrel hunt and catfish rodeo conversation, the Mandela effect, and shared consciousness, but separate filters. Okay, that's going to do it for us today here on Will Cain Country. We hope you will hang out with us every Monday through Thursday live at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, the Will Cain Country Facebook live stream. But we're here for you always at Spotify and Apple. We'll see you next time.